Okay, so good to see some familiar faces, some faces after a long time, some new faces. And it's really nice to have, a panelist with us today. And I'm Sandy, and I'm the founder director of the Just Being Center for Mindfulness and Presence. And and we will be joined by Harini a little later on. I will be just holding space for this conversation. And the conversation is really between Romana, Asta, and Shreya, and then later on with all of you. Um, and just to, it's really nice to have Romana, Asta, and Shreya with us today. There's familiarity with all of them, and also familiarity with their work. They've all done either done the presence oriented psychotherapy program with the Just Being Center or the listening with embodied presence, or both, uh, you know, as the case may be. Um, and very central to what we offer at Just Being and through the training programs um, is this embodiment of presence, and really coming into everything that we are doing from this sense of presence. And and then we apply that in therapy. We apply that in whatever we are engaged in. And our panelists today have a very rich background that they have come in with already from the social sector, and then have taken the learnings also from their training and in presence, in embodied listening, and really taken it forward in the social sector, or are taking it forward and have really some ideas of uh, this interaction between self and the other. So, so Romana, welcome today. And Romana, she's worked in the field of education, and I'd really like for each of the panelists to say some more of their work as they go along. She's also written a book, Weaving Wholeness, where she explores very much these ideas, and she's very much into bringing this kind of systemic kind of change and healing in the field of education. And Asta, welcome once more to this today's discussion and conversation, rather. And Asta also has she's she's worked in the field of conflict resolution, um, and also worked with communities, with families, and she's interested in researching on precisely this topic of presence and the social sector. And welcome, Shreya, uh, to this conversation that we're going to be having now. And Shreya is also she has been in the social sector in looking at in the field of policy and governance, and again from a systemic point of view, that's a lot of insight that she can bring in. And she's also currently the executive director of at Just Being Center, and we are also hoping that we'll take a lot of this work further, take the work of presence and mindfulness in the social sector. So, what I do now is maybe just spotlight all the panelists today. And I'll add myself to there. Yes. And the way we will do this, kind of engage in this conversation today, is hopefully also in a reflective, contemplative way, with some pauses and some silence and some ways of reflecting as to what comes up, and take the conversation forward. And then later on, we will have a way of also all of us getting included in this conversation and dialogue. All right. So maybe just to begin with, and I didn't do a very good job of introducing you, but what's more important as to, all the credentials and the very important credentials that you'll carry is more in terms of what moves you to be in this work, and what do you hold as precious, and in the sector that you're working in the field that you're working in. What's precious, what moves you, what sustains you, what makes you keep returning? So maybe we can start with Romana.
Thanks, Sandy. And yeah, welcome everybody. Thank you for joining us on a Saturday. So I started my work formally in the social sector with children. And I think for me that continues to be what's precious. Children have a way of just anchoring us in so much hope and curiosity and playfulness. And I think that's really what just keeps me coming back and staying the course. I remember when I had just started, I walked into a classroom as part of my fellowship, and the teachers in that school gave me a big wooden stick when I walked in. And that was sort of their, like, here's what you need. Like, you've never been a teacher, you don't know what you're going to be doing, here's what you're going to need. And all of those lines and dialogues you keep hearing about, ye log, these people, things will never change. So for the longest time, that idea that, there's a cycle of violence and oppression, uh, that's just how it is. The oppressed will become the oppressor. Hurt people hurt people. Uh, and you would almost see that in contexts of deep poverty and adversity. And so for a long time, that's really what just kept bothering me, that no, this doesn't feel right. It can't be this way. But I think I came into the presence course with all of those questions of, why am I not understanding this, right? I really feel like I'm missing something. How do I understand uh, why this 7-year-old in my class just whacked his classmate's head onto the wall? Like, how do I understand that? How do I really respond to that child? Or these teachers that so deeply believe that the cane is the only way. How do I how do I understand it, first of all? Um, and for me, I think the gift in the course and my learning has been this offering that it's not people who are broken. Uh, yes, we are hurt and we carry hurt, but that's not what makes us broken. It's these ways that we've gotten caught up in relating to each other. That's what's broken down. Really, our ways of relating to each other have broken down. Our ways of relating to the world are so filled with pressure. That's what's broken down. And all of that somewhere has created this rupture that's taken us away from our wholeness. And I think that reminder again for me is just there in the face of every child, that we all started there. We all had this innocence and this playfulness, and it's there. And how do we create that space again to locate the hurt and rupture somewhere where we can work with it but not make it the way we see each other. For me, that really has been the shift for me that now allows me to sustain in this work, in believing that there is this space of inherent wholeness in us, and that's what we rest in and journey back to.
Thank you, Romana. Yeah, and, to rest in our wholeness, to journey back in that. And Asta, I'm wondering how it has been for you and what feels precious for you.
Thanks, Andy. Thank you, Romana. Right now, what I'm really present to is what keeps me here is this deep sense of care that I have for the whole world. And no specific issue in particular, no specific person in particular, but this deep sense of care for the world. And there are so many moments in the day when I see, there is garbage that's piled up on the street and there are animals feeding on air, or when I see a little child being scolded at, or voices being raised on little children. When I see my own self wanting to be someone else than who I am, in order to belong or fit in, and know that it's a universal phenomena as I speak, or when I switch on the television and I read news and I'm aware of the wars that are happening in the world and also in our own country. I can just name a whole bunch of things, and I'm deeply touched. I'm deeply touched in those moments when I'm present to them, and my journey has been to wanting to run away from that place that gets touched to actually being with that place, because encoded in that is the deep sense of care for the world, and also knowing that I'm not the only one who's holding this care as well. So it's that's the most precious piece. And I'll share a little bit about how I came in, and it's a full circle for me as well. So it will make more sense as to why this care is so precious. And it was maybe 15 years ago or so that I had gone for a rural internship, and I was a student of political science, and I thought I knew everything I needed to know in order to change the political system of this country, which had gone to the dogs. So I went like very passionate and really motivated, and I went to this movement called Mazdoor Kisan Shakti Sangathan, which spearheaded the right to info. It was part of one of the organizations or andolans that spearheaded right to information. I was there, and I was with the villagers who had, really built the movement up. And as I went there, I realized I was so useless. There was absolutely nothing that I could offer except my own presence. And that experience of humility was deeply defining for me, because it really brought me from here to take into account where you're standing right now, the soil that you're standing on right now, the people you are with. And it was that then invited me to move into the social sector instead of some of the other things that I thought I was going to do. I was in the sector for 10 years very actively, and I worked with young people, worked on a lot of programs that especially involved dialogue or supporting young people, have their agency back and do something about their environments rather than being told what to do. And by the end of my time with COVID, there were also riots in Delhi. And a lot of young people were also, again, involved in it, all of that. And as I left the sector, and I'm saying left in interim, was a phase when I realized I no longer knew what to do. Again, there was this coming back to humility about I don't know what to do, and my heart aches. So it was that heartache that brought me back, and it was at that time when I came deeper into my own self and my own connection back, which is when I connected with the just being center, and there was also nonviolent communication that I was learning and practicing. And now, as I sit here, I realized that that ache was not the problem that needed to be fixed or changed. That ache was a reminder. There was something that deeply mattered to me and I care about, and I want to reconnect with it. Because when I connect with that ache, I can respond to right here, right now. And when I don't connect to that ache and I'm wanting to fix it or shift it or change it, which is what I had started doing when I was in the sector. And there is a lot of that I have seen around, if the house is on fire. So if you don't do it right now, then everything is going to burn. And so, like everyone is now reacting with that fire. It's when I take a little step back and really connect with the source of the ache that lives inside of me as well. Yes, it's there outside and it lives inside of me, is when I can find, like, I don't know, some integrity or humility. I still don't have words for it. It's just like I can rest in some integrity and some humility and hope that from that space I could respond in some way. So in this moment, that's what's most precious for me.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Asta. This connecting to that ache and not turning away from it. And we'll explore that some more, but let's hear also from Shreya. And yeah, what do you find precious, Shreya?
Just sitting present to this ache that Asta has been mentioning. So just acknowledging that as well for myself. So in terms of what brought me to this sector, what keeps me going, I think it was just this very almost childlike sense of equality and justice, that like, why should someone else's experience be different, and then it got refined over time to, okay, equal opportunity, then equity. So as we keep going into the sector, our ideas of that kind of keep evolving, but to a very fundamental level, it was just that like, that it's a shared human experience. And I think what really kept me going was this belief that people can really come together. I think what moves me is this, like, people coming together for a common cause. Like, when you're able to put aside, and now I can say it's not really putting aside, it's seeing what it is for you, and also seeing, like, what is there for the larger, and then it moves together. It doesn't have to be an either or, like, that this thing doesn't have to be separate from the whole. So kind of, yeah, I think it was that kind of keeps me going. And in terms of the work I did, in terms of chasing that kind of thing, was more around, I believed in, like, government systems. So I said that, like, if the public system does its job well, then the social sector or the gap doesn't need to be as deep, like, or even in terms of sustainability, that ultimately, like, the natural design of the system has to take care of everyone in it. So I started off by working with, different levels of government, city government, district, panchayat, state government. So through my kind of journey through the social sector, it has kind of been like starting from the grassroots to then going to the next level, then going to the next level, and kind of seeing, where is all of this coming together. And then I think when at some point I got to, like, the state level, and I kind of sort of like what Asta was saying, I just kind of reached, like, I don't know anymore. I just don't know anymore. I don't know what. I'm hearing the same words. I'm hearing the same kind of ideas. I'm also saying the same things, but they're just not feeling this. There's a certain hollowness that came into it. And I think that's when I kind of decided to just take a step back. Yeah, and I think I came into, like, the course with just being with this very vague idea that I want to do something around, like, mindfulness and social sector. Those were just two words, and I didn't know how that middle bridge was going to get built. And now, and we'll talk more about it, is like I can see that like it's just like one step at a time, the path is just unfolding on its own. Yeah, I'll just take a pause there with that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Shreya. And I think this whole thing that you are bringing in, that often when we are, and I've worked with social organizations, social causes, especially in the field of suicide prevention, and you're right. There is this kind of like sense that even I find that it's so much oriented to what to fix out there. I mean, there's good intention, there's good heart, and all of the efforts and energy is like really around that. The focus is out there, but really, it is when we are bringing, from this lens of presence, from this lens of mindfulness, where we bring in this self, this person here in context. It's not in isolation. So neither is the self work in isolation, just happening separately, but it is this interaction of self and this context that I'm in, the context also shaping self. So it's this both, this interaction both ways. And I'm wondering whether any of you can lend to this from your own experience, maybe an example of what of something that moved within you, of when you were in a particular situation faced with something, and also the other way around, of when something within you changed, then how did the outer look? And we can take a pause with that and see what comes from your own experience. And yeah, and if any of you feel called to share, then you can just share that.
And share something briefly.
Hmm.
One thing that's coming to me, and I think what was a very important personal learning for me as I navigated the sector, was this whole idea of beneficiaries. Like it's a word that's used quite commonly, or at least it used to be. I don't know how much it's transitioned now, but that whole idea of somebody needing to be saved, for the lack of a better kind of word, right? Like, and I think today I'm able to like reflect back and see that, like kind of think about like what was my own motivation of wanting to go into this kind of work. Was I looking to like save something outside, but was also something within needed to be saved? Um, and I'm just kind of connecting back also to this idea of that, one of the things I learned also when we used to do work at the village level is that that within that society, it's like there's a difference between how I would look at it and how. So if I go from there, the thinking would be, oh, there's no water here. How are they living? That kind of very kind of early days thinking around the social sector was there. And then when you actually go and you realize that it's all relative, like it's not that even if many things are broken, there is still this like fundamental sense of wholeness that's there. There is wisdom in those communities and the people over there, and just kind of being open to like just receiving that and maybe accompanying it, not necessarily bringing your own kind of ideas and thinking that
Yeah.
better. Yeah. So and then like this is how it happened in like then that got flipped inwards, that like where am I kind of wanting it to go in a certain direction. Yeah, and it was a lot of like kind of stepping back and kind of allowing for something to unfold. Yeah.
Yeah. So there was this, there's this kind of listening to what is that inherent wholeness, seeing it as relative, also, and also this whole sense of not having an agenda, dropping that agenda, as well as you said something interesting about, what are we attempting in this kind of saving the other? What are we trying to save within us through that as well? And so maybe we can kind of, just together, just reflect on that, and also invite, because I'm not just the one asking the questions. So I'm hoping that all of us can, ask questions around it, reflect on it. So also inviting Asta, Romana, is Shreya, if there's a question that comes up right now around it, or your own sharing and reflection. Like, what's the next question that emerges from you? We can just sit with that.
I don't have a question, Sandy. There's something else that's coming up.
Yeah.
And this is during COVID. So when the first wave of COVID hit, and it was quite unknown for the whole world, we didn't know what we were grappling with, what was coming our way. And at that time, I was part of an organization and I was leading a team myself. And we had several programs where we were working with people in the communities, on the ground. And so we were also getting distress calls from that side. And then also all of us, suddenly we were cut off and they were, locked down, and so much that had happened overnight, actually. And I remember that one of the first things that I did inside of me, and this is now when I'm reflecting back, was gear up, like just this stance of, I just gotta get everything under my control. It was really this movement. And there was also what I saw outside the whole organization. We had this, and it wasn't just our organization, it was like in the sector, was this narrative around, we gotta survive. So overnight, we were fighting for our survival. And I find it very interesting to see from today, when I look back, that we weren't fighting for our survival, really. But in some way, it did become a fight for survival. And then we worked harder so there were longer working hours, there were lesser breaks, there were like a whole bunch of things, all trying to, in our attempt to get the ground under our feet somehow. And then the ground kept slipping. No matter how much we tried, the ground kept slipping because, well, There is no external ground under our feet anyway. And this was the closest I came to, my first experience of when I was about to get burnt out, and then eventually I did. And I know very well there's so many people in my organization. There was this sense of despair and grief that was present for so many of us, and also people outside. And then we were still going out of capacity and doing things, and the stopping or the waiting, we didn't know how to. Like, I didn't know, what do I do if I slowed down? What do I do if I didn't really fight it out? And what do I do with the not knowing? That was also not there. I say this with like also a lot of tenderness towards the whole sector and everyone involved in it, that it's the to be able to sit with not knowing is so new now that it's so hard to even be with it. And one of my biggest learnings of in the last few years has been kind of like befriending the not knowing, for the lack of a better word, like to just hang in there a little bit longer, even if for like 1 extra minute, if that's all that I can do sometimes, if it's not for a whole year. And that has been like, it has been transformative, because that has allowed for me to find my inner sense of grounding, even if it's for a little bit. And then from that place, clearly see, like nothing else, just being able to see and listen. Because when I'm fighting and I'm fighting for my survival, I'm not listening and seeing. I'm just trying to grab onto something that I can hold on and then work with it. And with that, there is a lot of impact that gets created. When I can do a tiny bit of hanging out where I don't know, then I can see something that I can actually, with something which is really there, that then I can engage with or respond to. It took me another year until I could hang in with my not knowing a little bit, like 1 full year of COVID, and then the complete collapse and second wave of paralysis, where I felt like I just couldn't do anything at all, just absolutely nothing, and then felt useless. And it was then I realized, wow, I don't know what are we fighting? We're just fighting, and I no longer know what I'm fighting for. So
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Asta, for that. It's this, we're just in this fighting, survival, kind of some responding to some threat kind of like mode. And we don't even know what that is. We lose sight of, or what is this all about? We're so in that habitual sense of gearing up, bracing. Yeah. And you brought in this thing of where that pause might be needed, just stopping in all of this, just to be able to see and to connect and to listen. And just the value of doing that. We take a pause with that, we see what comes, maybe our own experiences around this, of how and when has a pause helped, and the relevance of that in our work. What happens in the pause? Yeah, Ramana.
I think for me, it was in the pause that I began to realize my own context. I think throughout school and then work, and then especially the social sector, puts you into this overdrive that Astha talked about. It's almost designed to not let you pause. And I think it was in the pause that, more than before the not knowing, I guess, I think the first reckoning which I hope we're able to do more and more, is really this reckoning with the failure of our context today. I think Asta brought it in earlier, and so did Shreya, but we really are living in times of deep, deep failure and violence. Many bodies are living through real survival. And it's almost in reaction to the pain of seeing the grief around that many social organizations are almost hitting the accelerator because it's just so much. I think the pain there is just so much, and it brings up so much helplessness. To recognize that we've created education where educated people in positions of power are investing more money in arms and ammunitions rather than food. There is enough money in the world today for no one to die of hunger, and yet we have children dying of hunger. Our lives are revolving around technology, and all our technology is coming at the cost of little children's lives and lands. So, and this has gone on for so long. Our social sector has been built to now band-aid it so we don't see enough. So I think it's that, like that, recognizing that we're so caught up in this way of life, which brings a lot of helplessness. I think the pause for me was really that falling into and seeing these deep wounds and the entanglement, right, of how my personal life is entangled with this. And then the pain and grief was one. I think the other one that I wasn't quite prepared for was how much anger I came in touch with. And in that, feeling through that anger, and I'm still working through the anger because it's almost triggered on a day-to-day basis. I think that's when my personal practice and my supposed professional practice really got blurred in, and I'm very grateful for that. Because as Shreya said, I was able to realize that so much anger I was feeling was also because it was really personal. Like my own experiences of what does it mean to navigate the world as a Muslim in today's climate of this country? What does it mean to navigate the world as a woman? And I've just like buried all of those. But those are the places that I'm trying to save from. So I realized all my work outside is really trying to find my own power, is for me to feel seen and heard. But I'm doing it from this place of wounding. And that's where I felt like, okay, this pause is needed because what I really want to save is me. So let me do that first. Because otherwise, all my work outside is coming from this place of wound and need. So I felt like there was that the gift I gave to myself in the pause, which would not have been possible without everyone that was there to hold me through that pause. It's not as glorified as we sometimes make silence out to be. Those first few moments of silence can bring so much pain, and I think that context is what became alive for me in the pause.
Yeah, I think this is also something, Romana, that Asta you had brought in, Shreya has also brought in this ache that to come in touch with the inner pain. But Romana, you're also, in some way, you're sharing it feels like an invitation to me as well to kind of like really look at that the systems around us are not really serving us. And a lot of the work in the social sector so far has been so much about, just trying to kind of, like we're not going under to what needs addressing, what needs attention. Yeah. It relates a lot actually also to the work in suicide prevention, where there's so much of the work that we do in terms of, you know, um, the saving, the fixing, the responding, almost in this frenzy that we need to do something, but really to go under, to go beneath the surface, and not just seeing the tip of the iceberg and responding to that, but really the lower structures that we really need to kind of like look at. And I think from any angle, whether it is education, whether it is suicide prevention, whether it is government systems, whether it is communities, any community that we are working in, from any lens, we are going to find like similar things if we stop and pause and listen. And first, like the invitation is Romana said, to come in touch with the pain. Mm. So I'm wondering whether we can also look at then what supported you, any of you, in terms of because, like you said, and you're alluding to, it's not a journey that we can just do by ourselves. It's not a simple thing to pause. It's not a simple thing to listen in and to be with the pain. So what felt supportive for you all? What's like really needed? Yeah. To have this unwavering sitting with, yeah, really an act of yeah, Asta.
For me, these wounds are relational wounds, and so they also heal in relationships. Like for me, social change is relational work also. Very, very deeply relational work. It's something that gets taken out of it somehow. And so what really supported me was, and keep supporting. It's not like I'm done. There's still stuff every day that comes up, is being part of communities and spaces that help me remember my wholeness, and that help me remember that I matter, that I don't need to do this work in order to get my mattering back, and I don't need to do this work in order to give people their mattering, because we matter. Like that's it. I just want to be able to touch into it and access it, and having spaces that can just allow me the access to that. A place in me already knows I matter, and I just want to be able to access it. Has been immensely I don't know, has served me in ways that I cannot verbalize how much they have served me. And I've also seen that for me, that when I can be in touch with that sense of mattering, and I know that the other human being in front of me matters, irrespective of their circumstances, right now or before or in the future, then my relating with them also shifts in a significant way. Like I'm seeing a child who's going hungry, doesn't have food. And yes, I have grief about that there is enough food in the world, and yet we have so many children every day who starve to death. And at the same time, it isn't about that child mattering anymore, because the child does matter to me. There is something that shifts in the way when I relate from that space for me. So one is just having some of these communities, whether it was through, for me, the community that I found with the Presence group, or people that I met through my nonviolent communication practice, or eventually because I was looking for it, I also found a whole bunch of, people who I live with or who I've become friends with, and just allowing myself holding in those relational spaces have been deeply meaningful for me. Yeah, and apart from that, I also, and I'm saying all of these words with an awareness that it's not complete integration for me, and I don't know if there is complete integration for anyone. I know that it's not really as integrated in me. I still want to say that these wounds are also spiritual as well. So it's my connection here as well, which was important for me. And I did grow up as someone who wasn't religious really, because the religion got also usurped by a dominant way of thinking. And I think I am coming back to wanting to have refuge, like be able to take refuge, especially in moments when I see I have failed or I don't know anymore what to do. I want to come back to places where I can find shelter in, whether those are spiritual places as well that I can connect to. And it looks different for each person, whether it's the shade of a banyan tree, or whether it's God or deity, or whether it's an elder in your community, whoever it is, there's just some place where I can also rest into a shared sense of humanity that goes beyond one-on-one relationships. Those have also been very, very helpful for me.
Yeah. So the question that we are responding to is that what helps us to stay with to take the pause, to stay with the pain, to listen in, to be able to see better. And what Asta was responding to is two things I really kind of resonated and stayed with me, Asta, is this that social change is relational. That if the wounds happen in relationship, then the healing is also going to happen in relation. And that's not just for change out there, it's also for the practitioner. And the support for the practitioner in terms of, the support of like minded people, community, and yeah, and that, coming in with a sense of that we matter, that's a given. Yeah. And also this link that you made to also the connection with ourselves, connection to the other, but also a connection to something larger that we connect to, that we find refuge in. So what's that refuge? What's that place of refuge that we can go back to? Whether it's relationship, whether it is, something higher, but what's that place of refuge? I'm just wondering if Romana, Shreya, if you all want to add anything to this. What supports what has been supportive?
I think one resonate with everything Asta shared. All of that has definitely been what keeps me moving. I think one thing what I've written about as well in my book Weaving Wholeness was seeing this work as it's personal work that, as Asta has described, as spiritual work, but it's also political work, and it is ancestral work. So in some ways, recognizing the way I see the work as the work of our lifetime and as intergenerational work creates a sort of expansion, however paradoxical that sounds. The enormity of the work can feel really overwhelming if we think of it in this current paradigm, which means I have to achieve and I have to win. But the moment I start seeing this work as really ancestral work, it's really spiritual work, the urgency is because it's political. The urgency is because it's survival. but it needs to sit in this larger systemic holding. So that understanding of how long-term and how invisibly entrenched the work is in some ways, that almost created more ease for me in saying, okay, Romana, this work of love and justice is my sole purpose. And my sole purpose is not going to win an award one day. That deconditioning of these old ways of thinking itself, they keep creeping in. And I think as Shreya said, right, we've created the social sector on that. So to be able to drop that and almost reorient for me was what really allowed my mind to catch up with what presence was teaching me. What wholeness is teaching me, my cognitive mind is still stuck in a capitalist colonial paradigm, right? So I had to let all of that go to say, okay, what is this, right? What is this non-dual world? What does it mean for my mattering and my achievements? What does it mean for what am I really striving for? Do I still want like that, the house, the car, the big bank balance? Or are my values in life different? Is what I'm striving for different? So that allowed my personal choices to change. It allowed these artificial lines between politics is about what you vote for versus actually, no, politics is every choice I make. Who am I buying from? Where is my money going? Am I using my voice for the Adivasis whose forest is being taken? So making everyday choices part of the work as opposed to the goal sheets that we create in organizations. That allowed so much more integration for me, which made it, okay, this is just how I'm living my life. And that allows me to slow down. That allows me to see it long term, to listen to ancestors, to listen to elders. It breaks the time continuum a little bit. But that's what has really helped me to rest.
Thank you, Romana, for that and for bringing in this, this interdependence, this larger tapestry that we are just a tiny part of. And the work is just what we are engaged in just this point in time and part of something much larger that started before us and will continue after us. And yet, what are the choices in this moment that we make that influences, this whole not so linear line then of continuity? Let me take a pause with that. Let that land for us, see what's there around this. Yeah. And Shreya, I'd also, if you want to add to that, like what supports you, and also then to kind of maybe speak on where, in terms of this being part, like taking a whole system perspective and what that looks like for you. How can a whole system be involved? It's not just like Romana was also sharing, not just the individual. It's not just me just in this and trying to achieve something. It's when we step back, we see the whole and how can the whole system kind of work together. What is needed really for systemic change is something that we can explore And we can start with you, Shreya. But if you'd like to add to what supports you in staying with all these questions, with staying with, I don't know, maybe, yeah, you can add to that and then take it forward.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Sandy. I was just absorbing, what Astha said about I matter, and then also what Romana said about, well, I also don't matter. So just like I'm holding both those, and it's so true, right? Like, how do you walk that balance of, yes, I want to do the work like I matter, and also not worry about the outcome because I'm not I think the answer that was coming to me in the most this thing way was just love. Like, at the end of the day was just this feeling of, well, I love this more than I fear the outcome of being seen or saying something wrong or so it is just that feeling. I know it's a very like textbook line, but like yeah, love is what helps me overcome the fear of yeah and people. Yes, I think people, like Asta said about communities, but also co-workers. I want to acknowledge, like, there are so many people who are just quietly doing so much work. Like, even in government, there's so much perception of like what is happening, and it's you will just see there's this thing, people say there's this 80-20 principle where, like, 20% of the people do 80% of the work. In organizations they say that sometimes, and it is like just looking at these people just keep going, and and it just kind of brings me also back that, okay, I can also like just keep going, right? Like yeah, and I've had the other thing that's coming to me is kindness also, that, there have been places and spaces within everything also of kindness, whether it's, someone who's, leading a particular thing, who's allowed for something to go wrong. Like, so it's also other people. And I've seen the reverse of it also. I've seen the reverse of it where, like, the organizations, the leaders, especially of the organizations, and I think it's also kind of taking me towards what I think systemic change might also need is this sense of. So towards the end of my work with the government, this thing around restructuring government departments had, become really the conversation that, oh, we want to change the way the department functions. And then we started to realize that actually it's not the structure of the department, it's the culture, it's the softer values and the way things like kind of happen. And it's this large unspoken web of norms that exist within an organization, and then between organizations and within the system, that really affects how an individual is able to function. So even if an individual has the best of intentions, sometimes, like, the system in which they operate, you have to almost keep aside your values and enter the system, because you're like, okay, these are the rules of how I have to operate in this system, but my values are this. And I think part of my burnout was also that, right? Like, the inside and the outside being so separate. And I think what this work is doing for me is allowing, to say things like, yeah, kindness, yes, love, yes, pausing, yes, presence. All these things can be a part of the formal structure of how we operate as well. And I can see ways in which we can translate. So one way is trainings had become, very important. And, one way we've done these trainings is with the officers who lead, the public sector, like the public officials, the IS, whatever cadre, and then there are other cadres, and how they get trained. Okay, so I was starting to see that ways in which, like, this kind of training, education, competencies of this softer things can kind of really allow slowly this like culture to start shifting. And the other thing that I really want to is this idea of collaboration. Collaboration within organizations and between organizations. And it's something that became very important. At least I saw in the time of COVID. So I come, like, my place in the social sector was from a public health background. That's what my training is in. And then I did policy work from a public health lens. And I realized in COVID that apart from the public health department, almost every other department had like a bigger role to play in the response than, like, just that health. And there is a recognition for intersectoral collaboration and all of that. Because, like, one person can't be broken down as, okay, this is their health, this is their education, now it's all coming from different places. So I think my vision was just that, like, there is this collective meeting that's happening where different people from different sectors have come together and look, but they're able to pause and look at that whole thing as a whole. Where they can stand in their individuality, in the sense that I am representing this sector, but I have the capacity to look at health in the context of the livelihoods, in the context of the education. So, and it's very, I mean, I believe that if everyone was to pause collectively, have that sense of safety within themselves, that I don't have to prove myself in this meeting, like, as I'm just using this example of this meeting where all of this is unfolding, but yeah, just that sense of enoughness within the self, that sense of I'm coming from a place of fullness, not from a place of scarcity. So that's what I mean when I said safety, like, because we're all coming from, like, something's missing and I need to prove something here. So can I be full within myself, in my work, whatever it is, and then come to this conversation and say that it's really important to do the health thing, but just the way I'm saying the same thing, but in the way I'm saying it is different. That, like, this is important, but it's important because this will add value to what you're saying, not because this is more important than what you are doing. So yeah, that's how I yeah. And I'll probably pause as well because I think I'm also getting carried away. So I'll also come back and just
Yeah. Yeah, and Shreya, I'm really looking forward to some of these things that you're bringing in through just being also in the programs with the social, in the social sector, and how we can kind of listen more across organizations, collaborate, and how it can be also developing this culture within organizations, where this becomes not just an individual kind of like journey. That's important too, but when it is a shared journey, when the whole organization is invested in looking that way, in looking in a particular direction, looking together from these shared values, then yeah, I'm wondering about what that impact might be. Yes. We also have Harini who's joined in. She could not join in earlier, so welcome, Harini. And I'm adding you, and please join in the conversation. Right. And I'm wondering whether any of you have anything more to add to just this piece of how do we look at, what's a systemic view that we can take? What's needed for a systemic change? Yeah, Asta.
As I was hearing Shreya, one of the things that was coming up for me was this difference between control and trust. And so a system that's designed for control essentially means there is, the trust is not there. And so when trust is not there, then the only way I'm going to find safety is by controlling more and more. And this is by and large the system. I'm not just talking about social sector. I'm talking about like the overall systemic lens. And this also connects to, therefore, when the theory of change, in the social sector, we have this theory of change, this terminology, and sure, there are different ways people can mean what that is also then an attempt to define what would lead to change. And sometimes I am a little wary of that because I don't know, I don't know what would lead to an entire system being changed. And at the same time, I can have hunches about it, or I can have some experiences through which I believe maybe if we flow in this direction, we can try in this way. And so there is something about, even if I'm trying to approach a system that is geared towards control, I want to be aware of, is my strategy also control? And that question stays with me because I've seen those tendencies within me. I'm not even talking about like outside, and I have seen those tendencies within me where my response is to control something that I don't know or I don't understand, or that I have difficulty being with. And so looking at how do we, and it's a question I have, how do we work towards systems that foster more trust to begin with? Like foster more trust in each other, in the larger collective, in our own selves, in the larger field. So one is, it's a question I don't have answer to, and it's a question I find very meaningful to ask. And this also then helps me even further with this, the difference between, when we look at change as if this particular thing happened, then I am calling it change because I have a theory about it. And then there is a difference in how did that thing happen? The how is so significant when I look at change, because the how changes the relationships that were an integral part of what was transpiring already, which only the what doesn't do. So by force, I can say eliminate child marriage, or caste system, or there is divorce and there is a dowry debt, so whatever. By force I can say that, and I'm not even saying that they're wrong. I mean, at a system level, again, each kind of intervention has its place. There is crisis response, and then there is also preventive response, and then there is also a different kind of, at a consciousness level, people are looking at work, and all of those have their own place in given space and time. So I'm not going there at all, not making a commentary there at all. It's just wanting to look at this one level of change which is not being looked at, where it's the web of relationships, the way we've become to relate with each other. There is something in that also can be looked at differently, and to not override it, because that's an integral part of what changes. That's so looking at system not as something static, but also as web of relationships and flow of information. And so what touches that?
Yeah.
That's important.
Yeah. This the focus on this web of relationship, which is dynamic, which is interrelating, which is changing all the time, influencing each other. Yeah, Romana, I'm wondering whether you want to share anything around this, and then we'll open it and we'll include everyone else, because I'm sure there's a lot that people would like to partake in this.
Harini, you want to go? You just came. Why don't you share?
After you.
Okay. I feel what Asa and Shreya have put in the center is that is the definition of systemic change, which itself, I think, is something the social sector needs to really understand first. We confuse systemic change with scale or with the institutional change, where everything is about government, where government is one thing, a monolith. But as Sanjay have really defined systems change as changes in the way we relate. So for me, then that becomes about recognizing power, about shifting power. And the ways we relate are related to who we are. So the identities we carry, and what you started our conversation with, Sandy, context. So that, again, that zone of dialogue is missing because the way we are constructed and we live today in education and society is separate. So I think we need very intentional design, very intentional ways of bringing people together to almost create this new world. So people need to experience, okay, what does inclusion feel like? When was the last time, as an educator, you actually had a deaf child in front of you and you felt like, oh, okay, I don't know what to do? Right? When was the last time we were at a conference where we had to really make sure that the place was accessible, that food was palatable for Adivasi, Dalit, Muslim, Christian, and upper caste Hindu? We don't know that because we're so far removed from that. So I think it's really intentionally thinking about why our relationships are ruptured and how do we create this experience which allows us to believe in this possibility of inclusion. Otherwise, it's majority wins, right? And every time a majority wins, the minority loses. So can we design for the minority
Yeah.
to be included and to thrive? Not just to keep hearing how minorities suffer. We do that enough. And then diagnose them and put them into theory of change, like Asta said. But can we really change the question to, can we create a place where we see people of all identities thrive? What does that place look like? What a joy to create a classroom where everyone thrives, right? So that almost that orientation to let's
Yeah.
create for joy. Let's create to nurture life. Let's stop trying to fix. Let's stop the doom and gloom. There's enough of that. Let's gather for joy and exercise our imagination to build that.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you, Romana, for that. And so much of your work is centered around that. Right? Yeah, in terms of creating these spaces. Yeah. Yeah, Halini.
Thank you, Sandy, and thank you, all of you. Just taking a moment to share how touched I feel by what you shared, Romana. Yeah, now I'm not exactly clear what I'm speaking to, particularly in terms of a question, but these are just some thoughts that I've gathered or feelings that in the journey. And I think there's been a lot of movement within me over the last decade. But today, where I stand is in terms of at least my relationship to social change, is to kind of build capacity to hold two polarities. One polarity tells me that, what I really want is not quite going to happen because suffering is so intrinsic to us. Yeah. So it is going to manifest in some way. So, and yet, so like a beautiful idea I have of like everything's going to be okay, and I wish everything would be okay, that's not going to happen. And yet, not to turn away from that wish, like to hold that love for all beings and the wish that, yeah, I still want it to happen. And to suffer through the coexistence of that polarity, I think has been a very important journey for me. Because there's been a time when my work was a lot with large scale systems, and I totally resonate with Romana and everything that's been said here, that let's not look at just government systems, but at least in the work of government systems, there was a moment of confronting that at least my work is not going to change this. And that also placed an important question of responsibility within me, that as I hold these two polarities, I become aware of, in my efforts of change, what is the energy that I'm putting in? Is the energy of either being very much in despair or despondent or aggressive, and or am I coming from a certain acknowledgement of this coexistence? And then from that sense of inner harmony, what arises, and what is the system then that I have capacity to engage with in a given moment? And on one day, it's probably just one human being. And at another phase in life, it's probably been a larger subsystem where I can act with that sense of inner holding for both these places, that there is suffering and yet there is the love for this beautiful wish. So yeah, I think the question for me has been lately, what is the energy I'm putting out there? And that's something that the journey with the programs has taught me immensely. The journey with Just Being, to really come into that sense of inner silence, inner listening, and to acknowledge and be responsible that on a particular day, even though I may have an ambition for a certain undertaking, I'm not ready for it in terms of my own inner sense. Because there's perhaps too much anger that is wanting to, and a great plan is arising out of that anger. But then can I step back from that? Because then that what I'm putting out is that. So yeah, while because then that's the relationality that I'm also bringing out, and so much agree with that piece of, ultimately it is that relationality. And very much so also for me when I've interacted with senior bureaucrats. So in the systems that I've worked with, while it has felt like the whole system's not changing, but there are so many pockets where that sort of something has shifted. Something more human, something that's more from the heart space has emerged. And yet there has also been this sense of lack, because sometimes larger power sources can sort of do things that can disrupt that. And I think today my big question is, and in my, I don't think I'm going to set out to do that, but I do have that question. Like, what is that relationality going to look like, especially in conversations with very big sources of power? Because those spaces are opaque, those spaces are there's just nothing, no way to reach, and the ways to reach don't resonate. So then how can we cultivate a voice that can also perhaps reach hearts, even at that level? That's a certain, I would say that's a wish. I wouldn't even, I don't know how I would ever, but I think it's an important question to hold.
Yeah, thank you, Harini, for that. And I think with that, I think what becomes also clear to me is that yes, we can kind of talk about this softness and that is needed, this relationality, this relating from the heart, which is really where I feel the healing and the work is. And yet the context of that, this very feminine way of being, actually, it's a very receptive, open, a feminine wisdom that's much needed to I think look at what we are in touch with, and yet it is built within, and it's kind of trying to find a voice within a system that may not hold that of value, and something else is of value. And so, but yet, how can we reach that? Because that's also part of that masculine energy, right? Or just these systems. So I'd really like to maybe take a pause here, just open it up to everyone, and we will unspotlight us, remove spotlight, be part of our larger circle together, and take in the whole circle. Yes. And maybe in this phase, we can kind of put on our videos as well. Like just have a sense of each other, just coming together, being part of this conversation, dialogue. And let's take a few moments just to pause with things and see, yeah, what's alive for me here, listening to this. What has got evoked, touched, maybe a question that arises, an insight, reflection. So let's take a minute of just sitting with this in silence, seeing what's here. And then we open it up to a larger sharing. So just seeing maybe what's a feeling, a question, a thought that arises. Just making space for all of it. Yeah. And if there's anything that comes up for anyone, maybe, yeah, you can just, raise your hand and then we can just, have your voice in the circle. Yeah, just what's here. And Sumita shared something in chat earlier, much earlier on, of resonating with Romana that while working in the social sector, sometimes the helplessness, anger comes up, and then the time for pause comes up as well, but can't do anything with the system where helplessness shows up. So at the end, we can only do for self rather than people and systems. But yes, helplessness, anger stays till it is wanted to be inside, I feel. Yeah. Yeah, Harpreet.
So it was very, very insightful, very fulfilling to listen to everybody. And I do feel touched a lot and do feel a lot of movement within. And there's a lot of resonance I'm feeling with what Romana shared, which is about the work being ancestral, the work being spiritual. And then it's not my work, it's work, it's the work. And I'm then a part of it. And I'm then a channel who's doing the work. So that really fills me with a lot of that power when I'm thinking that it is the work, and not doing that work is then something not okay. There's something within is not feeling right. That is taking more courage to not do the work than to actually just follow that, because how Shreya was also saying, no, the love is much more important than what comes in the course. And also I was just left with this question that, but why the work? And it brought me to this realization of what you all shared, that it's also a coming back to yourself in wholeness too. Like when I start seeing that suffering and I'm start seeing that I'm feeling lack within, outside, and then when I'm coming in touch with that within, that I am whole, they are whole. Why isn't the experience, they also have that? And then it's coming back to again that sense of wholeness. Can everyone experience wholeness? So that really for me felt like why we're doing this. And yeah, for me, like how I'm in children adolescent well-being, again similarly the work then is towards that direction. And I really feel very full listening to all of you, and it's very inspiring. It's very inspiring. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank you, Harpreet. And yeah, just sensing into that. Yeah, something feeling full. And seeing if there's something that is here for us that we'd like to share, reflect on, bring to the circle. Yeah, Sham.
I find the whole session very precious. So I feel like sharing what supports me in continuing in this path of care and love. So one thing is that when I happen to know all gurus are all who are established in wisdom and how uncompromisingly they loved and cared everyone, everything. So that getting to know that having an attuned, intimate connection with that timeless intention. So for me, it translates like I'm never alone. It's not a shams thing. It's a continuation of an intention, a timeless intention. So I'm not alone. And also, when I think of it, who is really loving? It's not a sham. Everyone has it. Everyone wants, everyone loves, everyone cares. Even if we take a theoretical absolute narcissist, he or she is concerned about himself or herself. So there is love. So it's not even an individualistic thing. There is love and grace and care. And we are within that. We are living within that. So that also gives me a space to not being desperate about it, hopeless about it, helpless about it. So it gives me a space to get disentangled. I can leave everything to that while participating in everything. And also, so for me, this process is actually deepening my understanding about what it means to love and care. So at some point, I realized that love cannot be compartmentalized. See, for instance, I cannot leave love and care from 10 to 5, doing something for survival. And then after 6 or 7, I can restart love and care, or I can reserve it for weekends. So it's also about bringing together, merging the means and ends, the future and past, meeting everything here, embodying it. And it is now. And I also feel like the importance of our POP course, the foundational principle is wholeness. So how we are all living in stories of separation and how those stories are dehumanizing it, all of us, taking the sense of sacredness from our lives, and how the questions or ideas around human dignity, how it becomes hollow when when these stories of duality, stories of separation, some are not good enough, some are too good. So the value of establishing oneself in that sense of wholeness and engaging from that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Sham. Yeah, coming into that sense of wholeness, and I'm also, and we will share with you by email just about the courses that Just Being does if one wants to kind of like move into a deeper sense of this. And we'll hear from, and I'm also aware of time, but we'll hear from Chandramouli, and then we will bring this session to a close. Yeah.
Thank you, Sandy, and thanks all of you for sharing your insights. I'll just share very briefly something that came up for me was like some time back I attended this online course. I think it was by Stanford University on Coursera, which was called Love as a Force for Social Justice. So that conversation today reminded me of that course. And in one of the modules, one of the professor comes and she's narrating a story that she went to a class and she asked us, the whole class, just one question, which is like, what is more important than love? And if that's nothing more important than love, then that's what we need to learn how to cultivate. So yeah, I just wanted to share that came up for me, and thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for that. And I think all our discussion is coming down to love. There's also, Romana has also shared access to her book in the chat, and I've shared also access to our courses if one is interested. But as we bring this to a close, maybe we end with a song, and we hold that for each other, for everyone, for ourselves, maybe we can just sit back and listen to it. So, yeah, there's a song for us.
In this moment, in this place, I remember who I am, letting fear and worry fall away from me. I open my eyes and see there is there is only love, love that heals, love that sets us free. There is only love. When I lose myself, when it seems I've lost my way, when I go inside and quiet my mind, I can hear Spirit gently say, there is only love. It's a love that heals, love that sets us free. There is only love. There is only love. There is only love. Love that heals, love that sets us free. There is only love. There is only love. There is only love. It's the love that heals, the love that sets me free. There is only love. There is only love. There is only love. Love that heals, love that sets me free. There is only love. There is only love. There is only love. There is only.
Right. So thank you all very much. And just this wish that we return back to ourselves, to our heart, even as we stay with these challenging questions and situations, both within us and outside us. Yeah. Thank you all for joining in.
Thank you.
Yeah, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.